Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation, Building an Online Presence, a Vision of What Your Website Can Be. My name is Ben, and today I'm going to be talking to you about why I feel BLK Web Solutions is the right choice for your next web development project. Just to go a little bit over about what we're going to be talking about, first we'll go over your website goals and expectations as a client, an analysis of your audience, and an analysis of your competition as well, where I'll point out some of the key things that I feel we can take advantage of to make your website stand out above theirs. Next, we'll go into our strategic planning, and we'll go through some of our objectives as a development team. We'll cover some of the design wireframes and color palettes that we've presented to you, website URL and hosting recommendations, as well as a development schedule and detailed budget. So going right into our discovery phase. Your website goals and expectations, as we've discussed, are to have a modern design that's easy to navigate, that's responsive so that it scales to multiple devices like desktops, laptops, tablets, phones, you name it. You also are looking to have some large photos of the animals that are available for adoption, but that don't bog down your website. And then you were looking for a layout that's interesting and appealing, but still simple and easy for people to look at. So to start, we'll take a look at your audience. Per what you have told us, your target audience is people ages 20 to 75 within a 25-mile radius of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Your general user profile is people ages 20 to 75 years. Most of the time, they're in a relationship, and they usually have one or more children. A lot of the instances that we found in our market research were either budding families that are looking to add a family friend, or it's empty nesters that are looking to have, less of an empty feeling now that their nest is indeed empty. So based off of that, we came up with a couple of user scenarios. The first one would be that a user may decide that they want to start looking into a dog. It's probably something that has a good temperament. They might have a young kid, and they need to go online to find out what dogs are available, what their options are, whether they should go to a pet shop, whether they should go to an animal shelter such as what you own. And we'll talk about ways that we can make your site the more appealing of the two, because obviously we would prefer that, needy animals get adopted versus pet shop puppies just getting bred to make money. The next user scenario would be somebody that's interested in animals and maybe looking to learn more about volunteer work. So we want to have that information available on your site as well. Looking at the competition, our methodology was to take a look at some of the different shelters that we found in the area. We found 3 within a 20-mile radius, and we dug through their websites to learn a little bit more about them so that we could analyze what they did well, what they didn't do well, some of the things that we think you should replicate and other things that you could improve upon. According to our research, the Fond du Lac area has quite a few of established shelters already, but none of them have the Global Federation of Animal Shelters accreditation that you have, and very few of them have a website that can compete with the design and usability that a pet shop does, frankly. So competitor number 1 was Fond du Lac Humane Society. Their website is fdlhumane.org, and they've been providing pet adoption services to the Fond du Lac area for a while now already. They have a multi-page website, but it's pretty outdated, and it's something that their current developer hasn't maintained in quite some time. Looks like the last change was about 6 or 7 years ago. So taking a deeper dive into that, some of the pros, they have a multi-page site, so they're not putting all of the information right on the first page. The average load time was really good. It was only at about 1.3 seconds. According to Google's algorithm, if you can get in at under 3 seconds, you have a good chance at getting on the first page of the Google engine search, the search engine results page, So that's something that we at BLK Web Solutions take to heart and look to take care of as well. They have some special events listings. They have Facebook integration with this little like button here. Here, get my laser pointer right here. It's not much, but it is integrated, so people do have that option when they visit the site to like them. They also are using tracking with Google Analytics, which is good. And then they have a consistent color palette throughout their site. You'll notice these red and blue tones, and that's really everywhere throughout their site. Some of the cons, however, the design's outdated. You can see just from this image that it looks old. So that's something that we would look to improve upon. They've got too much information on the homepage. While they do have information separated throughout the site, that landing page really is jam-packed full of stuff. And that would be something that we wouldn't necessarily look to do for you. Another thing is that their images don't have any design continuity. I mean, if we look here, we've got a set of maracas, we've got a casino night banner, and then we've got some kind of clip art here. So again, it doesn't really lend to a really appealing aesthetic. So that would be a negative for their site as well. They don't have any images of pets that they have available for adoption. And I feel like as an animal shelter, that's a big miss on their part. You know, they could really be promoting some of the animals that they have in their care that they could be getting into homes. The other thing is that this site doesn't take advantage of some of the newer web technologies today, like HTML5 or CSS3. What I mean by that is that there are new ways to structure a website with code, and there are new things that you can do stylistically with code as well to make your site really stand out. You know, you can add animations, you can add different gradients and colors, and a lot of different things that can make your site much more appealing to the everyday user. And then the last thing, their site's not mobile friendly. If you look at this image here, it's the same exact image that you're going to get when you pull it up on a phone, but a lot smaller and really hard to read. So that's a big minus on that site. The next competitor we looked at was Waupun Area Animal Shelter, and their website is waupunareaanimalshelter.org. They are incorporated in 2005, and they run purely on donations, so they're going to rely on volunteers and web traffic in order to bring those donations in. So if we take a deeper dive into their site, some of the pros, excuse me, they actually have a responsive design. When you scale their website down to a different size screen, say on a tablet, or if you pull it up on your phone, it'll look slightly different, but it's cohesive with the site that you see right here. They do have a lot of photos of adoptable animals. You can see a couple right here in this shot. You know, they've got links to their Facebook page. That's all good. Again, the photos are a good resolution for the web so that they come in clearly and are something that are nice to look at. Their website's really easy to move around. You can see they've got a navigation right here with all the links that they need to their different sub pages. And then, like I pointed out just a little bit ago, they have Facebook on their page, and you can actually see some of the images are being pulled from that. That's really cool. That'd be something that we would look to do. Some of the cons then, the header here, that's this portion of the website, it's got stock images. And from our standpoint, you know, you guys have a very empowering message and emotional appeal to crowds. So to use stock images versus images that you can get on your own of the animals that you actually have and your volunteers working with them, I feel like that's kind of a miss on their part. The other thing is that they've got tons of different slideshows, and they're all different on every different page. So it just doesn't feel very harmonious, I guess is our point with that. It can be difficult to find the content you're looking for. If you're trying to find an animal to adopt, you might click on the wrong page. You know, they have a lot of different links there, and that can get kind of confusing and convoluted. The icons in the header area, you know, that'd be their links here. They're just really small. Honestly, they could be probably 2 times that size. It would look better, and the site would be much easier for people to navigate. And then again, the layout you can kind of see here, it's pretty basic. Everything's center aligned. There's nothing really going on in the margins other than this paw print, which is better than what we saw on the first site, but still could do better. And then lastly, the overall design and aesthetic, again, it just feels out of touch with today. You know, we're in 2019, and it feels like this website just hasn't quite caught up with the technologies that we have available to us as developers today. Moving on to competitor number 3, we have Fox Valley Humane Association, which is foxvalleypets.org. They've been around for a very long time. Since 1891, that shelter has been in operation. And their site, well, you'll get to take a brief look at it here quickly, but It's one of the better options that we found. Theirs is built with a content management system, WordPress, and that's another thing that we could get into at a different time, but that'd be definitely a good option for you as well. So to go a little deeper in on their site, we've got the pros, which you can see the list is a lot longer than on the first two. To start, they have responsive design. So their website looks beautiful across all devices. I checked it out on desktop. I've looked at laptop screens, tablets, all different size phones, and they've got a great design for no matter which one you're on. Their hero image, which is this cute border collie right here, it's big, it's bold, it makes a statement. So we really like that in terms of the overall aesthetic. When the page loads, there's also an animation that runs across it, and that's a nice touch as well. So that'd be something that we would look into. You can see their images, really high quality. They're crisp, they're clear, something that's easy on the eyes. They also have a modern design. If their website starts out with an image, we've got a nice little logo here with the number of lives that they've saved at that time when we looked at the site. And then they have a navigation bar. It's smaller, but if you'll notice, it's here underneath the image. Now, when you scroll on this website, that navigation bar actually floats up to the top and gets a little bit taller. So it works out really well. It's a neat little design tool with that. The other thing is that they have social media linked on their homepage. You can't see it in the image here, but they have their Facebook feed pulled into there with all their latest posts and updates, events, everything pulls in on that page, and it looks really, really well done. Again, it's well laid out. We've kind of been over that. It's a multi-page site again, so we have, it's not too much information all in one spot. It's spread out nicely as we go. And then they use a complementary color scheme. The red and the blue and the white, it's not so primary color as some of the other options we saw were. They're using a variant of the reds and the blues to make it look a little bit more modern. It's a little softer palette. And then lastly, like I said, they have a sticky navigation. That's what we call it, is a sticky navigation, where it sticks to the top of the viewport there. Some of the cons, nearly everything on their website is a link, and that can make things a little bit confusing. It almost seemed like no matter where I clicked, I got redirected to another page. So that's not something that we at BLK Web Solutions feel is a great solution. They have a pet finder on their site as well, but it's not styled. They purchased a plugin from a third-party company, and they must not have figured out a way to make it look like it ties into the site. It kind of looks like a separate entity. And then lastly, they have really nice images. They're crisp, they're clear. However, with that can come some file size issues, and that can affect your load time. And if you'll see, when we ran our tests, the average load time was over 3 seconds. So it's pretty close to 3 seconds. It's not too bad, but it would definitely be something that could be improved upon. So obviously the best example that we found was for Fox Valley Humane Association. Each of the examples has a website that can get the job done, of the other two, I should say. But this site, really, it stands out that they've put some money into this and that they've put some time to curate the resources for it that they need. The content, be it the animal biographies, the photos, all the different events and staff work that they have listed there. It's a really well done site. So from our competition, we can take away a few things. One, we're going to want a responsive design so that your website looks good no matter what size screen somebody's viewing it on. Because let's face it, in our market research, we found out that roughly 75% of internet usage is on mobile now. It's getting fewer and further between people that are looking at a desktop. So we want to make sure that we can accommodate all those different screen sizes. The other thing is we want to maintain design continuity throughout the site so that when users go to subpages on our site, it doesn't look like they're on a completely different website. We don't want them to feel like it's disjointed or anything. Next, we want to make sure that we're using images that are optimized for the web. So they need to look good, crisp, clear, but also we have worked on a process that can actually keep the file size very small while keeping the images clear. So that would be a service that we would look to provide for you so that you can have crisp, clear images for your users to enjoy, but that also your site can load properly. We would also look at utilizing some different design concepts that are newer, maybe go for a more minimalistic look. Some of the websites that we came across were pretty crowded on the homepage, so we would look to condense that down a little bit and really focus on what's most important and then include the rest of the information on a separate page. We'd also look at using CSS3 and HTML5 techniques, like I've mentioned before, just to structure the site better, and that will actually improve your SEO or search engine optimization performance, which will in turn allow you to show up on Google before your competitors do. The CSS is the styling language that will allow us to do, fun little animations and add different colors and textures to the website that just kind of make it pop. Next, we would look to incorporate social media feed on your website. My personal recommendation is that Instagram would probably be the best route for you to take, simply because it's a very image-driven industry. A picture is worth 1,000 words. So especially with animals, I feel like people can connect with an image more than they can with text. So Instagram just makes a lot of sense to me from that standpoint. I would also look to include a sticky navigation so that your other links are available no matter where a user is at on the web page. It'll stay at the top of their viewport. And then I would promote having an About Us page where people can learn, what your story is, why you started this shelter when there's other shelters already around, and what you're doing in the community and things of that nature. The SEO techniques I talked about a little bit. We would look to add they're called meta tags inside of your code so that we can put different keywords and descriptions into each page so that we know that your page has the best chance possible of showing up on the Google search engine results page when somebody is looking for a pet in your area. And then we would look to have a good sitemap so that the site itself is laid out well for users and it's easy for them to navigate from one page to another. And then the last thing is that we would look to find a pet finder similar to what Fox Valley Humane Association did, but we would stylize it so that it looks like it ties into your site and not like it's something that was just slapped in there. That brings us on to the planning portion here today. So our objectives as your development team are that we would want to increase your online presence. We want to make sure that you're getting a good amount of clicks. We'd start at about 500. We would do that by incorporating a search engine management campaign. I personally am Google AdWords certified, so I would do keyword research to make sure that we have the right tags in your website so that people are coming to your site. I'd also look to use Facebook and Instagram advertising in order to optimize this for you. Next, I would place links to your social media pages within the site. We talked about doing it in the header and the footer. For sure in the footer, because we can just place icons towards the bottom of your site page, but in the header might get a little crowded, so I might look to do it on the side. We would have to take a look in the mockup and see what we think is going to work best for you once we actually get to that point. We would also look to add a list of supplies that you as a shelter need. We can have a page set up for that, but we can also include a shorter list of the more needed items directly on the home page in an aside container. So we would have your main content taking up, probably 75% of the viewport, and then have what we call an aside to the right of that, where we could add your social media links, we can add the supplies that you need and things of that nature. And we would look to get your donations increased by 10% in 90 days, as you can see right there. Next, we'd want to show and explain the work that your volunteers do, and we do that through photos and a little bit of text. Again, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So we want to be able to tell your story, because we know that as soon as people can see that and they can connect with that, they're going to come to you when they're looking for their next pet. And they're going to come to you when they're looking to donate money to a shelter, or if they have supplies that they'd like to bring. We want to make sure that we're bringing them to you, and showing all the hard work that you and all of your volunteers put in is a great way to do that. Next, we would need two pictures of each pet from you, so that we can have them ready for the site launch. We want to put together biographies for each pet. And having a couple of different photos is really just good for the users. They like to see, you can only get so much out of one picture. If you can have 2 or more, you can see more of the animal, and people can really start to begin that connection. They can start to envision having that animal in their home in different scenarios. So we would look to incorporate that into the site as well. And then again, we'd look at adding the bios of each animal. We'd want to add their gender, their weight, whether they're spayed or neutered, and then just a little brief clip about their temperament, just so that people have an idea, like this dog is good with cats, this dog is good with kids, this cat is not good with any other animals, things of that nature. All right, so that brings us into our design wireframes and color palettes. So the first option that we presented you with was this one here, where we have kind of a big hero image at the top. You'd have your logo somewhere up here. Your navigation, again, sticks to the top. We like that sticky navigation. That's so that people can always get to the page that they're looking for. And then, like I had mentioned, we would have, your main content taking up the majority of the viewport. And then this little aside here is where we could add some social media icons, and then a list of different things that you guys need. The next layout that we did, we would have your logo here. We would have kind of a shorter banner here, and then we would stick your navigation to the side. It's not something that's for everybody, but it is a newer trend that we've been seeing, and it can work out really well depending on what your logo is and how you like to do things. But we could also have the social media icons there and have a list of different things that you need, and then have a big portion of the main content there. And then this is just the color palette with the different hex codes that we would need to use for those colors. Option number 2, the layout options are the same, but we have different colors here. You can see we're working more with different hues of green and blue and a bit of yellow there, just for accents. And then the last option that we have is more of an industrial feel to it. It's got some black, some orange, and then a couple of different versions of yellow that can be used to highlight different features of your website as well. So based off of our discussions with you, you actually chose the first layout and color palette, which works out great for us. We thought that one had a really happy, bouncy vibe to it, which is really going to be nice for people coming to your site. So based off of your selection, we created a couple of different mock-ups just for desktop and mobile for now, so that you can see kind of what the vision would be. And you can see here we've got a nice big hero image. We've got your navigation stuck to the top. We might make that a little taller depending on how it looks when it's actually live on a website. We've got some of your main content, and then we've got the aside that we talked about with your social media icons and a list of things that you need, and maybe just a brief version of the history of the shelter. And then we could maybe add in a mission statement along here somewhere, or anything along those lines. When it scales down to mobile, we go to what's called a hamburger menu, where people can click on this icon and a menu opens up from the left or from the top, or whatever you decide you prefer. And then we would go down to a single column layout where we just have main content and there's more of a scroll. We would get to this stuff further down the page, or we would just have it on a separate page altogether. Next, we'll take a look at the domain name recommendations that we had. Some things you want to keep in mind are brandability. You just want your name to be memorable. If it's not something that people can pronounce, if it's not something that they can remember easily, if it's not something that they can type easily into a browser, they're not going to want to go there. So that's one of the things that we really push at BLK Web Solutions on our clients, is that you want to pick a name that's brandable for your URL so that it's easier for people to get to. The other thing is that you want it to be pronounceable. Again, that just helps people associate your brand with you so that they can remember you and what you do. It's also can be a catchy thing, and people are more drawn to names that they can pronounce. Lastly, if you can slide a keyword or two into your URL, that's perfect. It really works well with your SEO strategy, and it makes it easier for people to find your site. So based off of those factors, our recommendation would be to use the name fdlanimalshelter.com. Okay, and hosting options. Our first option that we found was InMotion hosting. Some of the highlights, it's got great speed and performance, They have 24/7 technical support that we've worked with in the past, and they're great. And then they have cPanel powered hosting, which just basically means that it's easy to work with for us as developers and easy to work with for you as a client. Some of their user interface stuff just makes it easier to find certain information that you need from time to time and to move and remove files as you need to. Another option that we looked at was GoDaddy hosting, and some of their highlights they're proven. They've been around for a while. You've probably seen a lot of their commercials. They're the #1 hosting service in the world, believe it or not. So again, they've got a stout reputation. They also have a variety of domain extensions available through them. So there's this new wave coming through about domain extensions where you could do something like fdlanimal.shelter instead of fdlanimalshelter.com or things of that nature. And GoDaddy is kind of at the forefront as a hosting service for that. They have a lot of those different extensions available already, where some other companies do not. So they also have really pretty fair pricing on those as well. And then again, award-winning 24/7 technical support. We've worked with them in the past too. They're fine. They can be a little bit harder to work with than our other option, InMotion, but they do a good job as well, and they are always available. The last option that we found was 1&1 Hosting. They're actually based out of the UK. Some of the highlights that we found, their plans start at 99 cents a month. It really doesn't get more affordable than that from a hosting standpoint. They do have a proprietary website builder, which is similar to if you've seen advertisements for Wix, where you can do kind of a drag and drop build on the website. It's a good option for you maybe. It's not something that we would necessarily need, but at some point, if you want to be able to have more control over that, that could be a good option for you. They do have cloud backup available, as do the other ones, but 1&1 Hosting actually made a point of promoting that. And then they also have WordPress hosting available, and WordPress is something that you might look to in the future. It's a content management system that allows you to add and remove content at your leisure instead of at the leisure of a developer. So that can come in handy as well down the road if that's something you'd like to do. Our hosting recommendation is actually going to be InMotion Hosting. They've been around for 15 years. Their plans start at $295 a month, and they bundle some really good services into the plans, some that other companies charge extra for. The things that we were looking at specifically are an SSH certificate that they provide, and then they also provide built-in malware and DDoS, or delayed denial of service attack protection. That's where people kind of throw a bunch of requests at your website to try and get it to break, and often they're successful. So we'd like to guard against that any way we can. And then they also do a real basic site backup for you as well. So there's a lot to go with them. They also have a 90-day money-back guarantee if you're not satisfied with the service. So they're a really nice option that we like to work with. So moving forward, if you do decide to go with us, this is kind of a look at what the development schedule would be like for us. We'd look to have everything ready to roll in about 2 weeks from here. In that first week, we'd look to create the technical specs. Then we'd also create the functional specs for the website, page population, quality assurance testing, and then do a final site check. And then in the second week, we would go through the things that we need to do for launch. We'd deliver you the completed site. We'd complete the different testing options that we need to do, compile our user results. And then lastly, we'd simply press go and launch this thing for you. Taking a look here, this is more of a detailed budget that we can get to you in a separate document, but to include it in here, I just wanted to kind of give you a look at it. You can see it breaks down the different number of hours for the different tasks that we have involved. But really the main point here is at the end here, we'd be looking at about less than $3,800 here, $3,760 to be exact. So that'd be well under your budget. As you've discussed with us, you're willing to spend up to $5,000. So we feel like this is a realistic estimate from us in the amount of time that we would need to get it done. So we feel we can come in under budget for you. And lastly, just to recap, we've outlined your goals and expectations. We've analyzed your target audience. We looked at your competition and gave you some recommendations to help you stand out above them. We also outlined our objectives for you as a development team so that we can improve your site over your competition and actually incorporate some of the things that they did well and some of our specific goals or metrics for you in terms of search engine optimization and results from that and so forth. We've also offered a variety of color palettes and layouts, and you gave us your pick of those. We gave you some recommendations on website URL and hosting. And lastly, we just went over our detailed development schedule and budget plans. So lastly, we just wanted to say thank you very much. We really appreciate your time and we look forward to working with you. And we hope that you enjoyed this presentation from BLK Web Solutions. Thank you very much.